Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's this show where I read a lot of comic books and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, I want to invite you to like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really does help us out and we appreciate all of the support. But we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, The Bone Orchard Mythos, 10,000 Black Feathers, issue number 1. All right, so the Bone Orchard Mythos. This is a series of books of stories by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Now, we've already had a one-shot for a free comic book day. Then we had a graphic novel hardcover for The Passageway. And now we get the first issue of like a 5 or 6 issue miniseries, 10,000 Black Feathers. Now, you can enjoy The Passageway on its own, and you can enjoy this book on its own. They are connected, as in that they take place in the same world, but they don't necessarily require you having read the preceding book so you can get into the new one, right? This has nothing to do with The Passageway, but at the same time, it has everything to do with The Passageway, so I would highly encourage you to check them out. Jeff Lemire, fantastic writer. People have been digging on his work for years. Andrea Sorrentino, an amazing artist. People have been digging on his illustrations for years. And of course, Dave Stewart on the coloring. We've been digging on his coloring for decades. Okay. 10,000 Black Feathers, though, is a really interesting, creepy, perfect for this horror fest time of the year first issue. It was really atmospheric, very creepy. It had a dark tone to it that worked absolutely well. It's about this young woman. She wants to be a writer. There's something going on with a childhood friend. I'm not going to spoil anything further than that. It's going to be considered a quick read for most, but I think it is a worthwhile ritual to actually take your time with this book and allow the pages and the composition to linger. So The Passageway was a really quick read too. This one is a quick read, but there is a lot to it at the same time. Visually, incredibly striking. You got moments that are set in the current day, moments that are set in the past. They are very distinctively colored differently. It works. I was talking about these crazy compositions. We have come... Well, I don't want to show you that page. Ooh, I don't want to show you that page. We have come to know Andrea Sorrentino for amazing compositions, doing things with different styles. Man, I'm trying to find a 2-page spread that won't ruin too much to show you. You know what? I'm just going to briefly show you this one early on. Look at... Come on. Come on. It involves murder. It involves despair. It involves dread. It involves sorrow. It involves horror. It is Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino back together yet again, doing what they do together so frickin' well. And that's produce an amazing visual story that has nuance, has depth. Deceptively, it has depth. Because at first you're going to be like, this book was so quick to read, there didn't seem to be much meat on them bones, but once you get to them bones, you realize there's a lot more meat there than you first anticipated. That was a weird analogy. Anyway, the pick of the week is The Bone Orchard Mythos, 10,000 Black Feathers, issue number 1. That's from Image Comics. Then we got The Least We Can Do, issue number 1, a brand new one from Shadowline over at Image. And this one I just wasn't really digging on. I mean, it's got decent enough artwork, but it didn't really pop for me. It didn't really do much for me. The story is about this world in which there are a few magical artifacts that if everybody would just learn to use them correctly, we could end war and violence, but I don't know, like the 1% like hoard it all away or something like that. I don't know. It kind of felt very familiar to a lot of stories that we're seeing in fiction, in comics, in movies, in TV. Like, just seems very similar to a lot of stuff that we're getting right now that just didn't really resonate or compel or engage me in any kind of way. So I didn't really like that one. Do a Powerbomb issue number 4, though. This book is awesome. This book is freaking rad. Daniel Warren Johnson is one of the most dynamic and energetic artists out there on the market today. His artwork is fantastic. And what I love about what he's doing is he's writing and illustrating his own books. That means you're getting more of one vision from a creator. And this is a wrestling comic that actually has a lot of heart to it, a lot of charm, a lot of humor, and a lot of ridiculousness. And it's got an insane amount of action. This has it all. Daniel Warren Johnson is able to make exciting comics that are visually exciting and also just exciting through the concept of the story, but also go a little bit deeper than your typical just, you know, flashy flair, right? This book is awesome. Do a Powerbomb does a Powerbomb to me every single time that I check it out. Above Snakes is here with issue number 3. Each issue of Above Snakes, which is a revenge western tale, which is written by Sean Lewis and illustrated by Hayden Sherman. Artwork is amazing. Now, the artwork here feels a bit more, I don't know, kind of frantic or something, but most of this issue takes place in a forest, and the way that Hayden is working with the lighting here is exceptional. There are effects that are done, especially like right here where you see the light coming through the trees. They look absolutely amazing. This is a book that doesn't take itself too seriously. It is a revenge western, but at the same time, it knows that comic books have to inherently have an element of fun to them. And both Sean Lewis and Hayden Sherman bring the fun, the energy, and the nuance. And then Hassan Osman El How, one of the best letterers in the business, and if you doubt me in any kind of way, they gave him a variant cover. I had to double dip on Above Snakes this week because Hassan Osman El How, one of the absolute best letterers working in comics today, has his own variant, and it's all just showing you why he's such a good letterer. And it's also incredibly funny to read. So this book is humorous, it's fun, it's adventurous, it's somber when it needs to be, but at the same time doesn't take itself too seriously, and I love it. King Spawn is here with issue number 14, got that badass Raven Spawn cover there. Sean Lewis, who's been killing it on Above Snakes, is also killing it on King Spawn. If you read one Spawn book, it should be King Spawn. This book has ties to the original, like, early run. It has ties to all the stuff that's been building up since issue 300, and it has ties to everything that came in between, or at least I'm assuming so, because I didn't really read that much. But now that those compendiums are out, we got 1 through 150 now available in 3 compendiums for Spawn, and I'm loving it. It's a natural progression of the story. It is got these giant moments. Artistically, this was a really great issue. Thomas Nalchik has a grit and an edge that I think has actually been missing from some of the previous issues visually from King Spawn that really works. Things are amping up and I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm a 41-year-old Rockin' Robbie who loves reading Spawn comics. If you told me that 20 years ago, I'd be like, you a damn lie. Then we got the Silver Coin, issue number 14. This one's all right. I'm gonna be honest with you. I really like the Silver Coin. I think this book excels when it really wants to. And each issue is written by a different writer. So each writer has their own kind of themes that they like to tackle, and each writer has their own kind of thing that they like to do. Now, this is written by Pornsak Pichiotti. I messed it up. The writer of Good Asian and Infidel, and I'm a big fan of Infidel, so I was excited to read this book. Now, the great connective tissue between every issue of Silver Coin is Michael Walsh doing the visuals. The visuals in this issue are great. There's some nice gnarly moments, some truly horrific moments. But as far as the story goes, it's called The Bad Year, and this is about the breaking apart of a relationship during the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's revisiting all of that, all the masks, all the anxiety, all the toilet paper hoarding. It's all there, and it's just like, you know what? I just lived through that. I'm not ready to read a book reflecting on it. So to me, it kind of threw me off. Maybe it's going to resonate more with other people, but for me, I'm like, let's craft our fiction for escape and inspiration, and not just like, yeah, we all just went through this. Like, we don't need to be reminded. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of a weak issue. Then we got Batman vs. Robin number 1. We're jumping over to DC. Light week for me on DC this week. I only read a few. But Batman vs. Robin was really good. So it spins out of the events of the recent Robin series by Josh Williamson. It also spins out of the events of the recent Mark Waid, Dan Moore, and Tamara Bonvillain World's Finest run, right? Now, if you didn't read those 2 runs, you can still enjoy this book, especially if you're a Batman fan. You're going to want to read this book. It's going to be spoiled for you. You don't want that to happen. If you're a Batman fan, if you've been reading Batman over the last several years, you definitely want to check this book out. Now, if you didn't read Robin and you didn't read World's Finest, it's fine. You can still enjoy this book. However, if you did read that, it's going to add an extra element of shock and surprise to you, especially when we get to certain revelations at the end. So, I applaud Mark Waid for telling a great tale that's just really solid. It has something in it that's needed to happen for a while. At times it feels kind of out of nowhere, but it starts to kind of scale back and explain things a little bit more, but it still has a lot of mystery to set up. Why is Damian like full-assed going after Bruce Wayne? Why is Robin fighting Batman? There's a lot to it, and we're only getting the little tidbit. But kudos to Mark Waid for telling a story that's great for any new reader, but also feels very connected to the DC universe proper and what's going on. I loved it. I thought Mahmoud Asrar's artwork was really solid and really great for it. I think his work can be really good in times, and other times it just doesn't work for me. Here, it all works for me. I thought this was a great issue. Probably the best issue that I read from DC this week. Then we have The Flash, The Fastest Man Alive. Issue number 1 of 3. So this is supposed to come back out in April. This is kind of like a comic book prequel / tie-in to the upcoming Flash movie. So this is Ezra Miller, cinematic Flash. This is how he gets his new costume. It's developing his relationship with Batman a little bit, the Ben Affleck Batman. It's showing him Flash going off on his own as a solo superhero, some of his first villains he comes across, and it's alright, but the artwork just kind of tries, but doesn't really try too hard, and the story, like, tries, but doesn't really try too hard, so there's nothing memorable, nothing excited. If you are one of the few out there who is just, like biting your fingers off every day in anticipation for this Flash movie, this is the book for you. Otherwise, very skippable. Then we got Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Justice League Wonder Woman. It's a one-shot. So we've had 2 of these one-shots already. So the Justice League died. They were killed by Pariah, but in actuality, they were sent into these worlds created by Pariah that are based on the deepest, darkest, and at times most hopeful desires of the heroes. So Superman's in a world where he sees Jonathan grow up. John Stewart's in a world where everything is perfectly straight and everything is built for control, right? And then in Wonder Woman, we get introduced to a world where the Amazons and the world of man have this peace, but there's a dark secret connected to it, and Wonder Woman's trying to figure it out. So it's actually kind of more of a nightmare world for Diana, so it didn't really work for me that way as far as a connection to what was actually supposed to be going on. So it didn't do much for me. It's written by Teenie Howard, and I don't really respond very well to Teenie Howard written scripts, so it just didn't do much for me. But the backup story in here, there's a backup story with Martian Manhunter that is written by Dan Waters and has illustrations by Brandon Peterson. And it's some of the best Brandon Peterson work I've seen in a long time. And I'm not telling you to go buy this $5 comic book for this like 8-10 page story at the end, but that 8-10 page story at the end was the best of all of these Dark Crisis tie-ins so far. Still not necessary. Then we got the Jurassic League here with issue number 5. The penultimate issue. We got a full issue illustrated by Juan Gideon. So it does bring that energy in. It's got a great sense of buoyancy and fun, but also threat, right? The scope is starting to widen on this book, and certain of these new relationships between these dinosaur Justice League members are starting to be tested. So the conflict and scope are amping up. The book maintains its fun sense of comics, though, because it's about a world in which the DC universe are all dinosaurs. You don't expect much from a book like that, and so when you deliver exactly what it should deliver, which is fun, excitement, and adventure, we know a Jedi craves not these things, but a comic book fan does, and they're delivering that. In Jurassic League, let's jump over to Marvel. And from Marvel, we have Midnight Suns, issue number 1, and it's Suns with a U, not Suns with an O. And sure, if you want to change it, why not? Of course, this is based into a video game, and it's not really like a reignition of the Midnight Suns stuff from the 90s, and I'm kind of glad that it's not, because if it was, with the way that Marvel is now, it probably just pissed me off. So it's nice that they're just doing this video game tie-in type thing. But even though it's a video game tie-in, it still has direct connections to the Marvel Universe. And I actually like that. I think that Ethan Sachs, who is the writer here, actually did a good job of taking an unenviable job, which is doing one of these. This is tied into an upcoming Marvel video game or something, right? And you just got to figure out a way to get these characters together in some kind of supernatural reason or threat or something like that. It's a weird team for the Midnight Suns. You've got Zoe from Strange Academy. You got Nico. Is that her name from the Runaways? I think Wolverine. Because why Wolverine's not a mystical or magical like being in the Marvel. Why? Because Wolverine. It's just because you got to have magic. That makes some sense actually. Blade and Spirit Rider. Now I'll tell you this though, the book wasn't actually that bad, and I do applaud the book. The artwork is decent. It's solid enough. I have some issues with the coloring, as I usually do. Sometimes it just kind of muddies together. It's hard to. It's not as exciting with the coloring. Anyway, it's decent actually for what it's trying to do, because it has those connections to the Marvel Universe proper. It's got the connections to Strange Academy. It's kind of all folded and centered around there, which makes sense when you really think about the cast. Wolverine's just kind of thrown in though, and even Wolverine at some points like, I don't even know why I'm here. I feel like that's Ethan Sachs in the script being like, why is Wolverine in this game? Why I gotta use him? Anyway, it's alright, but I would not, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, then we got Predator issue number 2 here. It's a decent second issue of Predator from Marvel. The first issue was cool. We were introduced to this new character. Her family was killed by a predator. She is now out there with this AI-driven ship who's her only friend, hunting down the predator that killed her family. She keeps finding predators, keeps killing them, but it's not the one that she's looking for. And this was a little bit of a step down in momentum, because a lot of this was just kind of like meandering around, holding back, waiting for a big thing that was kind of obvious. So when it happened, I was like, I thought that was going to happen in the issue, not as a tease to the next issue. So they kind of slow up the momentum for me in issue number 2, but it's still pretty decent. And I'm really impressed by Kev Walker. I don't typically find myself liking Kev Walker. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but the artwork was pretty cool. Axe, Judgment Day, issue number 4. Why? I read it so you don't have to. If you don't want to read this book, I'm going to let you know you probably made the best decision. I do not like this book. I find it insufferable. I find it boring. This was another one like this. I just said that Predator took the whole issue to get to a point that we already knew was coming that should have been the point of issue number 2. Okay, that's I think a valid criticism. However, Avengers X-Men Eternals Judgment Day number 4 finally at the end gets to the point that we have all known has been coming for 4 issues. So it's rather dull, incredibly boring, very wordy, and there's a new interpretation of Star Fox in these pages. I'm not quite a fan of the interpretation. It's a bit weird, it's a bit off-putting, but at the same time, it doesn't bother me, it doesn't piss me off, doesn't make me think it's the death of comics or anything like that. Now I know some people are liking Avengers X-Men Eternals Judgment Day, and more power to you, fair enough, I'm happy for you, but for me, I'm only reading it so that I can report on it, because it's Marvel's big event. And Marvel has been really lackluster with their events lately. They feel out of nowhere, like there's no legitimate build-up to it. And this is one of the most dull, boring, and least interesting Marvel events I have ever read. And I've been reading comics for over 35 years. So that's pretty crazy. I don't like the book. If you like the book, I'm happy for you. There is stuff here that I think people will like, but I think the majority of people are going to find it rather dull. And I'm just not digging it. And I'll tell you what, I've dropped out of the X-Men books. Gillen, who's writing this book, seems to be the figurehead of the X-Men books right now. If I was still reading the X-Men books, I would be really upset, because where Moira is here, and there's some Moira stuff going on, but no, that's actually in Spider-Man. None of that's in here. Anyway, didn't like it. Boring. We'll get to Spider-Man in a second. Daredevil number 3, it's okay, but for a book that just relaunched, It didn't need to relaunch. We all know that. We all accept that. It didn't need to relaunch. And then the first issue didn't deliver what a first issue should. The second issue did some pretty interesting stuff. The third issue goes right back to just Matt questioning the direction of this book. That's what happens here in issue number 3. It's Matt Murdock questioning the direction of the book. I'm like, you just relaunched this book. You got a few people that are jumping in for the first time that maybe have not read the previous volume. And I get it. Maybe they should have. But you shouldn't call this issue number 3 then, because for 3 issues, I bet new readers are like, what the hell is going on? And why is Matt Murdock so whiny? Well, he's whiny because that's just the way he is. But you can incorporate it better into the story. Amazing Spider-Man number 9. The worst issue of this new run of Amazing Spider-Man yet. Why? Because it's a tie-in to the Hellfire Gala. The Hellfire Gala, I skipped all of that like a month or 2 ago, like weeks ago. I skipped all of it. I thought I was free from the burden of the Hellfire Gala and the X-Men books. And here is Spider-Man tying in very directly to the Hellfire Gala. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Mary Jane being controlled by Moira, seeing where Moira is now. I quit reading X Deaths and X Lives of Wolverine midway through. Seeing where the X-Men books are right now with the whole Moira stuff, I'm glad I'm not reading those X-Men books because it would piss me off. If you're reading Amazing Spider-Man and you're liking it, you can totally skip this issue. And it wouldn't matter a damn. And if you think that maybe they're finally revealing something about the Mary Jane Peter relationship, where it's going, no, they're not. This book, I know people rip up comics. You know, I don't want to do that. That's why I had to set the book down. That book really pissed me off. Venom number 10. This book's just not working for me. They're trying to do something cosmic with Venom. They're trying to do something timey-wimey. I was down to see what Al Ewing wanted to do with this high-concept approach on Venom. I was excited to see where it was going to take us. I wasn't really that thrilled or excited. I am still liking the Rom V issues because they're more grounded. They're more centric on the father-son relationship and from Dylan's perspective. But this is the Al Ewing issue, and this is the issue that I think Al Ewing really thinks most people are going to read this issue and be like, holy cow, that's awesome. No, it's not. It's rather dumb, and at the same time, it's incredibly predictable. This is Al Ewing getting high on the smell of his own symbiote farts. I don't know. Savage Avengers is here with issue number 5. David Pepose has been doing a really great job with Savage Avengers. Now, Jerry Duggan had a really solid run for like 20-something issues before, so I don't envy what David has to do here, which is relaunch a book that was already had a really dedicated following and fan base and kind of have to switch up the team and do something new, but it's worked for me. I love his characterizations of Cloak and Dagger in particular. I love his work with Elektra. I love what he's doing with Deathlock and the connection to a future version of somebody who we know in the Marvel Universe. And also at the same time, it serves as a really nice coda and prequel to Conan the Barbarian's involvement in the Marvel Universe. Not just properly, as far as connecting directly and crossing over into the Marvel Universe, but just all of the other stuff that came before. All the Roy Thomas, Barry Windsor-Smith, John Buscema, all that stuff. All of the Conan Marvel books before it went to, like, Dark Horse or whatever. This is a really great, like I said, coda, epilogue, and setup. This was incredibly well crafted as far as that goes, and I love what David Pepose is able to do with characters that most people just don't care about. David Pepose for a Cloak and Dagger series. Please, give me David Pepose on a Cloak and Dagger series. Because they've deserved a writer of his caliber. And he's doing some good work there, and I think there's more to develop. We'll see what happens. Then we got Maskerade issue number 1, a new one from Dark Horse, co-written by Kevin Smith, along with Andy McElfresh. McElfresh? That sounds like a fake name. And if it is a fake name, you could have done better. And if it's your real name, I apologize. Anyway, this book did not do it for me. There was a time in my life where a Kevin Smith book would have just sent me over the edge. No longer the case, but I am excited for the quick stops that they're doing. But this book, very stagnant, stiff, stale artwork. and just kind of trying to be funny and not really working for me. So what is the book about? It's about this dude who's like, what is it? He don't even know what he's working for. He's working for some kind of ad agency or something. He's working for a news company. That's right. He's sleeping with like the main star of this news group. And then it goes to this other woman who's like on this revenge path, going after like sexual assaulters, stealing their face. I have no idea. It was filled with dick and fart jokes, but not in a good way. I was very disappointed in that. From IDW, we have Dark Spaces Wildfire, issue number 3. This is the book that just keeps getting better and better and better. The second book that's released this week with illustrations by Hayden Sherman. It's awesome. This is some of Hayden's best work I've ever seen them do. It is absolutely amazing. Now, the coloring is done by Rhonda Pattinson, and the coloring in this book is my favorite coloring in a comic this week. It is absolutely amazing. I love the choices. I love the use of complementary colors, and Hayden Sherman playing with layouts, playing with composition, with setups, and Scott Snyder, who's a really solid writer, but he's doing something very structurally interesting with this story where all the different levels of a wildfire, he's correlating that to the story of these women inmates who are volunteering to help fight wildfires, but they develop a plan. There's this, like, I don't know, like a mobster's house or something. There's a fortune in money or Bitcoin there or something. They're going to rip it off because it's in the path of the fire, but things get really complicated. And this story keeps ramping up. And if structurally, what Scott Snyder's trying to do is show the progression of a wildfire from start to finish, but through this insane, cool crime fiction tale of these women, it's working. And it keeps getting better, and it solidifies each issue. And Hayden Sherman is doing some of the best artwork of their career. Absolutely amazing. You gotta read that book. Also from IDW, because that's from IDW, we have True Cult, issue number 2. Now, I crowdfunded this when it first came out, because Liana Kangas, I consider a homie in this industry. I'm a big fan of her work. She's the illustrator here, and I'm really excited for it. Now, I've already read all 4 of these issues that are going to come out, and I'm going to tell you that overall, I really like this story. But what I really started, my one nitpick at the story starts in issue number 2, and what it is it's about this dude who is like an assistant manager at a burger joint. It's a shit job. He knows it. And there's a lot of cool, light kind of threads that are being thrown in throughout the script of, if you've ever had a shitty job, you'll read it and be like, I know exactly what they're talking about. Irate customers, ridiculous, overly enthusiastic co-workers. It's all there. But the problem for me is in the script of issue number 2, it really slows up, and it's rather verbose, and the story moves as far forward as I think most other stories would do in a half an issue, so it doesn't quite fully develop, right? It doesn't quite get to the point soon enough. That being said, I'm a big fan of Liana Kangas. I think her work has an incredibly confident and frantic approach to it that I'm just loving, and I love her sense of lighting and sense of color. And she's assisted on the coloring here by Jimmy Savage, and it's working for me. So artistically, it's awesome. Story-wise, it still works, but it could develop a little bit further, and I think we're going to get some more of those issues, but it does wrap up rather nicely for me. Also from IDW, along with Boom, we have Godzilla vs. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers number 5. This is the final issue. This book has been explosive. It's been fun. It's showed you Godzilla versus the Power Rangers. It showed you Rita Repulsa and her monsters against the Power Rangers and Godzilla. You've seen Godzilla and the Power Rangers team up. You've seen King Ghidorah, and now we're elevated to this high pitch of a finale, and it's great. It's big. It's explosive. It's gigantic, moronic splendor. And it excels. They nailed the ending. I really, really like it. From Aftershock Comics, we have Samurai Doggy issue number 2. Now, issue number 1 made the pick of the week. It blew me away. Issue number 2, not so much. I really did Love the artwork in this issue. I think the artwork is absolutely fantastic. Now, it is written by Chris Tex, and the artwork is by Santos. The artwork is great. The coloring is great. Everything is interesting about this world. The problem is it moves the focus away from Samurai Doggy, and it's about a dog who is out looking for his lost and stolen siblings, but he's like a samurai. The world is really interesting, and there's a little bit of world building done, but most of this issue centers around a new character who is involved with other new characters, and I was rather confused. I spent most of this issue being like, how does this connect to what came before? I am lost. I'm confused. It pulls it together a little bit at the end, but it was a very disappointing issue number 2, especially with the promise that was sold on issue number 1. From Vault Comics, we have Mindset issue number 3. I love this book. I think it's absolutely amazing. One of the best books I've ever read from Zach Kaplan. Excuse me. Now, Zach Kaplan has a very verbose script here, but John Pearson is able to utilize the artwork in such a way that it makes the script flow so well. When we say a book is overly verbose, I don't mean that it's the amount of words. I mean it's about the pace of the words. Sometimes those words will become stiff, stale, and they'll hold the pace of the book back. That's not what happens here. Now, Pearson and Kaplan are working so freaking well together. This is amazing. I love the artwork. I just linger on the pages. I love the technique. I love the differentiating of techniques here. And I'm really compelled by the story. It could be easily sold as like a social networky type thing, but it's about these college kids that design an app to free minds of influence from social media and other outside influences. But while they're developing this app, they come across the technology that brings about mind control. And so now they're dealing with how to work this. So you get that ethical question going on here, but you also got this really nice thematic thread of influence and how we're all influenced by everything around us every day. So I really appreciate the theme. I love the artwork, the experimentation, and I love the story. I think that book is really good. Also from Vault, we have Revealer, issue number 1. Now, I know we're all having some problems getting books out on time and stuff, but this book should have come out in June when the Revealer movie was debuting on Shudder. Shudder reveals, or, yeah, Shudder debuts a lot of movies, like all the time, and then like they can kind of be lost in the shuffle after a few weeks. But Revealer is a movie that was co-written by Michael Morisi and Tim Seeley. I haven't watched the movie yet, so I haven't read this book, but this is the official one-shot tie-in. I'm excited to check out the movie, but I just haven't found the time yet. But when I watch the movie, I'll read the book, and I'll let you know what I thought about it. From Dynamite, we got Vampirella Mindwarp, issue number 1. This book is sold as Vampirella is warped back to 1969, which just so happens to be the year that Vampirella debuted over at Warren Comics. That happens at the end here, but everything leading up to it was really cool. It's written by Jeff Parker. It's got artwork by Benjamin Dewey. The artwork is really solid. The characterization is really solid. The story is rather compelling. It starts with Vampirella fighting a werewolf, and it just goes from there. It has that pulp vibe. It has that sense of fun. It has that sense of adventure. It's bringing in some new characters. It's doing some cool things. I like the coloring. It's bright. I like the line work. It's simple. It's clean, and then it's got a great setup and conclusion that makes me want to come back and read more. So I thought that was really cool. Then we got Mad Balls versus Garbage Pail Kids. This book's awesome. If you're a fan of Mad Balls, which I am, I always got to show my Mad Ball. The one Mad Ball I have, I always feel like I got to show it off when I talk about it. I love the Mad Balls. I love the Garbage Pail Kids. This is a book that is stupid, silly, ridiculous, and so much fun. Every issue, somebody tries to come up with something to pit the Mad Balls and the Garbage Pail Kids against each other. You always get 2 or 3 stories, and you get these wild like activity pages. It's so much fun. If you have any kind of tinge in your heart, nostalgic tinge for any of these properties, you got to read this book. You're going to love it. And then finally from Aftershock here, we're going to talk about the 06 Protocol. The 06 Protocol is a new book that I thought was not very good. It really didn't do much for me. And right now I'm trying to remember what's going on. Okay, so it's about a husband and wife. They're randomly attacked by some dude one night. The husband is killed. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and tell you this. I do not recommend this book. I thought it was really, really weak and kind of whack. So I'm going to spoil this book now. I don't usually do full-on spoilers. I'm going to spoil this book. It's about this chick and her husband. They get attacked randomly by this dude. And in the attack, the husband is killed, but the wife murders the dude. Then she finds out that her husband is part of this government program hunting down these people who have had some kind of injection given to them that at random points in their life will just drive them insane and they'll become crazed killers. Okay? So one of these dudes he was hunting down found him and killed him. His wife has been in training this whole time by her husband, even though she doesn't realize it. She's like highly trained to take his place. And major spoilers here, you get the reveal at the end that she is actually one of these injected people that may one day pop off. That's it. That sounds cool, doesn't it? No. This book is dull. It's boring. The artwork. I really like Cliff Richards. I read years of Cliff Richards on Buffy comics. There is something about this art. First of all, the coloring is really whack, but there is something about this art that looks like it's done in widescreen and then pan and scanned into a full frame. It is weirdly narrow and wonky. The dialogue does not flow. It just, in moments, it just stutters and stomps and stomps. It doesn't stomp. This book should stomp, but it stalls. That's what it does. So I don't know. It's a decent concept, but the execution was way off. So that's what I read. That's what I thought about it. Let's do the recap. Avoid this book. It's not very good. Dark Horse, Maskerade, did not really get into that one. But True Cult, but Dark Spaces Wildfire was really freaking good. Samurai Doggy really faltered. Mindset is becoming a must-read for me. Vampirella Mindwarp is fun. Marvel didn't really have me going at all this week. DC really sold me on Batman vs. Robin. But once again, the kings of it are Image Comics. King Spawn continues doing what King Spawn does. Above Snakes continues doing what Above Snakes does. And it gives us a letterer appreciation variant cover. That's super cool. Do a Powerbomb does a Powerbomb in my face when I read it. And the Bone Orchard Mythos, 10,000 Black Feathers, #1. Creepy, sophisticated, elevated, awesome. There's your weekly comic book review. What are you reading? What are you digging? What do you like? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station. Pop, pop. Boom!